Okay, and we are now live. So happy Thursday, everybody. I hope the sun's shining where you guys are. It is with me. So we've got the awesome Jon Green on the call today. Jon has, well, it was actually a couple of weeks ago now, but finished up with us in the 1% Blueprint program. By my take, in my account, I think he's absolutely smashed it, but I want Jon to speak for himself here. We're going to dig into where Jon was, what he's achieved, and then some of his key learnings. So hopefully anyone watching this can get a few takeaways from it. I think it'll be a very beneficial conversation. On that note, before we jump into that, Jon, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do?
Sure. Jon Green, I'm a photographer. I work mainly in London and around the southeast of England. Got a family, my partner Pip, and my two kids, a 5-year-old and a 15-month-year-old. So yeah, in the deep end with that at the moment. And we've just moved 3 times in 2 years for different reasons, and we've ended up in Cambridgeshire, where we're just sort of settling in now.
Nice. Okay, well, on that note, let's kind of jump off. And I think a good place to start as any is like where you were when we very first spoke. So look, if we rewind, say, knocking on probably 4 months now from when we first decided to start to work together, I think you probably saw maybe one of my Instagram ads and a couple of videos that way, and then you decided to book in the call and have a chat. What was going on with you back then, and what was your motivation for having a conversation with somebody like me?
Yeah, it was Instagram that where I saw your adverts, and it was I think there was just a lot of life stress that I wasn't dealing with very well. Family, having young kids, work stress, moving, lots of contributing factors. And I think in hindsight, I just wasn't making enough time for myself, but also just the whole situation was quite overwhelming. So I knew I needed to do something. I've always been keen to keep fit. My fitness had sort of gone downhill since probably Molly was born, so about 5 years or so. You just run out of time is what was my excuse. And so yeah, I was looking to like get back into fitness, but I also knew that I needed to deal with a lot of mental health stuff. It was mindset stuff as well as just fitness. So yeah, Luke's advert spoke to me, talking about kind of the whole holistic approach, sort of the whole picture rather than just PT or just dieting and stuff like that. I knew I needed to sort of address multiple parts of my lifestyle.
I think that's it's a relatively, not to belittle where you were, Jon, but like it's a relatively common, I guess, scenario for a lot of gents, and it's a bit like work, life, family, the universe. You sort of get to a point where you kind of firefighting and trying to deal with it as best you can, but then you actually take a step back and realize I'm not really dealing with any of this as well as I can be, and it's about recognizing that and going, yeah, well, part of it's I'm not looking after myself physically, but that's one part of the bigger picture puzzle being your life, whatever. Now, I think the physical aspect and the mental aspect to me are kind of inextricably linked. In any sort of form of self-development, you need to have both, but it's not that one's more important than the other. I think they're just two important factors. And more often than not, if you're not where you want to be physically, for me, that's almost like a symptom or a byproduct of knowing that there's lots of else in your life that isn't serving you in the right way. And then the net result is you don't feel your best mentally and or physically,
Yeah, I think I was mentioning to you as well, at the time when I booked in a call, was my position in my work had changed from I was more front and center, and I was feeling that it was with the physical side of things that I was sort of more on show. But it was more like I wanted to clear my mind of certain things that were like bothering me, whether it was like, having a bit of weight on your tummy, or thinking about food, or thinking about home and stuff going on there. There wasn't enough space for me to process it all. And so what happened was I bottled it up. I would snap probably at people in the family, in my house, and then it would just be, a sort of a spiral. But I think it was, I think, like, as you were saying, like I realized that I've done sort of therapy before, and I've gone to the gym regularly, but it was combining the two with sort of mindset and everything that kind of made sense to me.
Cool. Well, that's kind of like fast forward then, sort of to date, right? So that's back where you were, not where you wanted to be physically, I guess, maybe overwhelmed is too strong a word, but like feeling a bit like, treading water with trying to deal with everything that's going on and not feeling like you're dealing with it as best you can. And also, I guess, within that, taking time and taking care of yourself, because you're important in amongst all of this as well, right? So then fast forward to today, what are your key achievements? Where we are today? Like what are the main things that you've achieved? I guess both from the physical and the mental side, or, you know, you share whatever you want to share.
Yes. So from a physical side, I think the most obvious thing would be, I think it was either the day that I booked in to start the course, or maybe the day before or after, I went for a run. I say a run, I walked. I stumbled around the local park, which is less than 2 kilometers. And looking back on it, yeah, I was annoyed at the time that my fitness had gone downhill so much. Fast forward to 3 months later. Now I wasn't doing lots of running training or anything. I was using Luke's program to a lot of it is to do with like high intensity training and stuff. Without even realizing it, I'd increased my aerobic, my ability to go out and run. I'd went for a run as part of one of my final challenges, did 10K without stopping, felt over the moon. You know, the actual physical fitness side, I can see, you know, there is data that just shows it's within such a short amount of time, I've turned my physical health around. And that's got to do with a lot of other elements. It's not just going to the gym or doing workouts or anything like that. It's to do with the eating and fasting, things like that, like elements of it, nutrition, that all tie in together. I think from a mindset point of view, that was the thing that really was important to me to try and sort out. I just felt that I didn't have enough time to process anything, and it was things just sort of came in, as you said, firefighting. I think that's a good term. What has happened over the last 3 months is that I've learnt techniques and tools that I use on a daily basis now. I can sit and process things in a better way. I actually have more time to sort out the problems that are coming towards me. That's been one of the biggest revolutions in such a short period of time. Is I wouldn't say I'm on top of mental health. I don't think you ever can be in that sense. There's always stuff that comes up, but being able to deal with those situations a lot better. I've got my 5-year-old daughter has a disability, so there's always going to be issues to do with her health, but also to do with just lifestyle and stuff. So for me, it was important to get on top of this now, knowing that it's going to be a long it's going to be a long time that we're going to be helping her, and I needed to be on top of that. There was there's an example that I'm not sure if Luke shared it or I heard it elsewhere, but it was about stress being like food on a table, and a lot of people, like, the stress like comes on and off, and people, food comes on and off. And a lot of people, for me, it was about strengthening those legs at that table, about like, I haven't said the analogy right, but you know what I mean. It's for me, it was about becoming stronger to deal with those situations, rather than dealing with them with alcohol or food, or just being depressed. Just not with it.
I think that's it. It's like, you can't control what comes at you and happens to you in life. You know, something like, say you don't have a disability, that brings its own challenges, and there's things in that you need to adapt to, work and the stress that comes with that, or whatever these things are. And we can't necessarily control those things, but what we can control is our own state and how we feel internally and externally, and then putting ourselves in the best position possible to then deal with any situation that's presented to us. And I think, if, let's say, the version of John that was 3 months back, not taking care of himself and, doing the things that he needs to be his best, when presented with those kind of situations, you're not in the best state you can be to then deal with them objectively, process them, take a step back and think about what the bigger picture is and all that stuff. Whereas I think, if I'm understanding what you're saying here, John, is that actually having the tools, but then also being in the best state that you can be, both mentally and physically, well, then it means that when presented with these challenges in life, which are always going to happen, you can be as objective and as rational and as reasonable as possible, because you're making sure that you're in the best state you can be to then deal with that, with whatever happens, right? And I think that's an important distinction.
Exactly. And I think for me, it was about systematically going through different parts of my lifestyle and just the habits that we picked up, like we all pick up either through family um, or through friends and stuff, and through ourselves, like what those habits were. You know, for me, alcohol, it wasn't a binging thing. It wasn't a continuously, oh, John's drinking, but it was taking up part of my brain that I didn't want to. It was taking up part of my brain that I needed to have to process real life issues. The same with phone, the same with processing all of those sort of things, that the addictions that that just creep up on you. I think the phone is a massive thing that's changed in my lifestyle. Putting the phone down has become easier. I was going to say as well, from a self-employed freelance point of view, there's quite a lot of people I talk to. There's a freelancer self-employed sort of guilt that comes around, which is like, oh, I've got to work every day. I don't deserve time off. But actually, one of the things I've realized is that that's super important to my mental health and to my career. So, I tend to go, if I'm shooting, I'll be driving into London, sometimes, up at 5 into London. I'll get back at 8 or 9 o'clock. The next day, I'll feel like I need to be in the office, need to get in there early, and actually for me, it was about processing, being kind to myself and sort of having a bit more like time to just settle everything down rather than sort of rushing around everywhere.
Well, and I think that's, again, if you're in that sort of headspace where you're rushing around trying to do everything all at once and again, feeling more overwhelmed with it, because of that background level of guilt or that things that you feel like you ought to do more, well, then that actually ends up tripping you up and you don't end up doing the things that you need to do as well as possible. Whereas actually, if you're able to take a step back and have a bit of space that you need for yourself, well, then that allows you to then do a better job when you're actually getting into the office, and because also you're taking the steps to take care of yourself. And I think it's that having those structures and routines in your life to take care of yourself versus just being completely reactive, going, right, I've just finished that, so I've got to dive onto this now, and then ending up sacrificing yourself at this altar of like trying to work as hard as possible. But actually, how productive is that in the first place anyway? And this isn't about being lazy or not doing less. It's about actually looking at what you're doing and going, there's a better way to operate. And like you said earlier, you said you've got more time.
Yeah.
If I could invent a system that actually gives people actually more time, I'd be a billionaire, right? But like, it's not about that. It's, again, this is about the mindset. It's like, and it's the perspective. You realize there is time there, you just can't see it, and that's not in a grind it out, there's more hours to grind. It's just that you, because of how you're doing some of the things that you're doing, they're impacting you being able to see that there is stuff there. It's just maybe how you're living your life and some of your habits aren't allowing for that to happen, but B, just you literally can't see it because you've got the fog of where you're at. Does that make sense or resonate?
Absolutely. One of the things that was habitual was TV watching. It was something that TV just went on, you just sit, and sometimes it was absolute rubbish, but you kind of I passed it off as a, oh, well, I'm relaxing, but actually I wasn't getting anything from it. And it was by detangling everything that was going on that I was able to see little bits that were not important or that could free up time, whether it's looking at your phone in the evening, putting the phone away and actually, well, now what, your hands are fidgeting, you think, well, let's read a book, it's that silly little things that like I knew I should have been doing, but I didn't have enough brain process to be able to get to that point. Actually, by detangling the whole knot, it made some things really obvious. And I think as well, like going through the process of the course, I realized what was important to me. One of the things was reading. It was something that I used to read a lot as a teenager and in my early 20s, and then just made the excuse that I didn't have time. It probably coincided with getting a phone, that kind of thing. But also, so for me now, picking up little habits and tricks and tips, one of the things I have is I put my book on the pillow before I go to bed, before when I wake up. So when I go to bed, it's there. You actually have to physically move that book out of the way. And then you think, well, it's stupid, I might as well read a little bit. It's that kind of thing where
Exactly.
you're just building those little habits. My morning habits have completely changed. I was always a morning person, but looking back on it, I don't know what I did for 2 or 3 hours before I got the kids at school. Now there's a lot more structure. I do try to get a little bit of exercise in every morning, even if that's just sit-ups and press-ups. And then I try and do sort of these things, the non-negotiables that Luke goes through in his course, which are habit building, and they give you a structure that's really, really, it's quite easy to keep it going. I found, where am I now? Probably about a month out from the course. I would say almost every one of those first 2 or 3 weeks of the challenges that you set, I've kept, because they've just become part of, and they're also, there's no reason to stop drinking water.
Exactly. But I think some of the other things is like some of the basic, more fundamental things that I believe we all should be doing. Actually, they're not like necessarily cool or sexy, right? So people don't think they're important, but they're incredibly important. And I think those simple basics go so well or so far to helping you actually start to feel good. So it's like, if you feel like, a lot of guys might be feeling like, late 30s, early 40s, even pushing 50, what it's all about, not feeling the best, existential sort of crisis. Are you doing the fucking basics? Because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit which will actually get you feeling better. Now, it's not to say there might be bigger picture stuff. There's other problems that hold you back, and I get all that, and that's again stuff that we work through and address. But it's like if you're building your house on sand, it doesn't fucking matter. It's like, let's get those foundations sorted first, and then from that we can build. And I think a lot of people either look to the shiny objects or go, I need this mad hack to sort my life out. It's like, no. Look at yourself first and what are you doing, and those simple day-to-day bits. And I think something you mentioned, John, was like having agency, and I think that like is really powerful, because if you're not doing the things that you say you're going to do on a repeated basis, that doesn't feel good for your self-esteem. The second you start doing that, even if it's little things, it's like, oh, I've done that every day, I've done that every day, I've done that every day, and it just builds this level of, I think, sort of self-esteem and sort of self-efficacy into your day. And even if it's small things, that's really important, because it's small things you're continually achieving, right?
And it's compounding. And that's the thing. That's the thing I realized with the exercise was, I would have, before starting the course, I would have maybe had a guess that I could get back to running a 10K in 6 months to, 3/4 of a year. The fact that it was 3 months day to day, from start to finish, that's the thing that's sort of blown me away as well, is the compounding effect of exercise, but also the compounding effect of eating well, vitamins, all of their elements that go together, that as you say, they're little things every day. But if you're hydrated, if you're if you're not waking up hungover every day, if you're doing a little bit of exercise, like sometimes my office is just around the corner and the gym is just a little bit further on. Sometimes I've got so much on that I've penciled in that I want to go to the gym, and I just get like 20 minutes there, but that's 20 minutes that will build. So at the end of the month, I've done 20 minutes extra, I've done half an hour extra, and it all just compounds, and that's part of it. It's just getting there, isn't it?
And then you talk about mindset shift as well, and it's like, well, and I think sometimes when we're talking about the physical aspect, and someone's like, "Oh, my head's a mess," and everything's fine. I don't. Some guys might be overweight, but they might even say, "I don't care about where I'm at physically. I just need to sort that out." It's like, well, actually, that has an impact, because what you just described there is like, well, I'll just get 20 minutes because that compounds, and that's like that mindset and attitude. Well, you can start to apply that everywhere else in your life as well. It's like, well, that report I've got to write, and I'm pissed. Well, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. Like, because you're showing yourself in other areas you can do that. And the converse is true as well, right? If you do something more cerebral where you're achieving something, you're like, well, maybe I can just push it here. And the two things sort of go hand in hand, but then it starts to breed that sort of virtuous cycle of like mindset and behaviors, where it's like, well, if I'm doing this thing here, why would I not apply that same thought and logic and behaviors to myself, my family, my relationship, wherever, and it kind of starts to play out everywhere else, not just acutely in the, oh, I've done a few more reps or whatever, and it's
completely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I think as well, what I've noticed is structure of my business has changed as well over the last few months, or it has become more structured, I should say. You know, I was in a good place with my photography business, but what I've been able to do with some of the processes that you have applied to lifestyle, family, I've then applied to business and sort of and finances. It's basically just giving myself structures. That before, you know, you think, oh well, why is my wallet like this month? And you know, you looking back, and it's like things in hindsight, you know, you're going, oh okay, well this hasn't been paid, or this, I'm still chasing that, or you know, that job got postponed. All these things, I was often working in hindsight. And I think one of the things that has changed for me for through my business is that I'm now putting in place systems in my business to look at things before they happen, like as they're happening or in real time.
Being proactive versus reactive, right? And that, and again, you apply it to yourself, but that can apply everywhere else. And that's why, you know, I think that, and that, you know, when you said earlier about the whole holistic thing, I think that's really important, because these things and tools and ways you act and behave, they don't just work in one area. They work, I would think, everywhere. And it's like, if you've recognized a way of operating or doing something somewhere, it's like, well, oh, that's not working there. Hold up a second, I've just shown myself I can do this in this area. Well, let's sort of, you know, match the two, you know.
But also, I think as well, as for me, it was you know, sorting out the business in terms of being able to see changes, see, you know, okay, well, that client always pays X, you know, I can see that now, and you're building these systems then affects my home life. I'm less stressed at home. You know, it is all connected. You know, when I go to the gym or go out for a run, or you know, or cooking or doing something like that, I'm not thinking about work in the same way that I used to.
No.
Work was dominating because it was because I had less control over it. Now I have more control over understanding the way that my business runs. You know, you free up that part of your mind to then deal with real life situations that are coming in.
And that's a beautiful parallel, I think, because the same applies to business, because like, you're rather being overwhelmed it's happening, it's like, well, let's get the discipline and structure, and obviously it has to be flexible because that's what life's about. Well, then it allows you to focus and be strategic about the bigger, more exciting stuff, about actually growing the business, really focusing on the clients, where, you know, all that. Well, then the same works for yourself. If everything's a shit show, you're not looking after yourself, you're and it's chaos. Well, then how best are you be able to be to look at the North Star picture for you and your family, like where you want to be long term, actually being present and available in your relationships? Well, then if that's taken care of, well, then you've got the headspace and bandwidth to do those things that are arguably much more important, right? And it's for me, it's about having that discipline wherever you need it to then free yourself up to give yourself the things you need to be, from professionally, personally, whatever, you know. And I think it's the same thing. It's levels all over the place, right?
No, completely. And in some ways it's all systems. It's all ways of managing, whether it's business or home or anything like that, you know, as well. It all applies to home life. And we're now putting in place, especially now Molly's at school, you know, structure. We have to think about holidays, whereas before it was, oh God, let's book a last minute holiday type thing. Now it's term times and all that, you know, we are becoming it, and that creates a better home life as well. I found the whole process really fascinating, about how some little tiny changes can affect so much. It's great.
Awesome. Well, I know you're a very busy man, John, and you've got, given what we just said, we've got a lot on, so I won't keep you for much longer. And I think some of your insights there have hopefully been really helpful for anyone watching. And as you know, I'm a passionate believer in those small incremental gains. They don't seem like much, but over time they have a big impact. And then, of course, there's always practical things and tools and things we need to work through. But it's like putting those pieces together, and you're the net result, right? And it's awesome to see. If anyone was watching this, and well, let's say there might be someone watching this, and they're maybe in a similar situation to where you were, you know, rewind a few months back. They're sort of on the fence, they're not feeling the best, they're a bit unsure about maybe investing in a process like this. What would you say to someone who's in that kind of position?
So in terms of the investment, it's an investment for the next 40 years of my life. It's not a 3-month process and, oh, I'm done and go back to the old habits. It's, you know, it's a life-changing experience that in the back of my mind, I've known has needed to happen for a few years. I didn't want to be 10 years down the road and be in the same position. And it was just, taking control of the moment. Taking agency of the first thing that you can take agency of is actually booking in the course. That was a big mental thing for me. Done. Luke's there. We're going to get on with it. Let's go out. Let's get this done. So it was. The whole process was. Just being involved with the other guys on the course as well was a great thing as well. Just seeing how everyone gets on together, and you can just see everyone's challenges, and you realize that you're not alone. Everyone going through the same thing. Almost everyone had similar situations. Different jobs, different amounts of children, no children, life stresses, but it all ends up in the same place in everyone's brain, and just a big old mess. So the more you can clear it out.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you. Well, Jon, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time for a chat. As I know, you should be. I think you should be incredibly proud of everything you've achieved. And like you said, it's not a 3-month plan; it's a rest of your life plan. And I know for a fact that you're going to continue smashing it. So well done, and thank you. For anyone who's watching this, if they're interested in having a call, having a chat with me, drop a note in the comments or drop me a DM, and we can discuss helping you out and getting some awesome results, just like Jon. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy your weekends, guys. And Jon, again, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks, Lee.
Bye-bye.
Bye.